Chapter 642. Moon calmly said, Since Master has personally asked me, I will be blunt. May I ask Master's plans for the future? If he has no other plans, then staying at the Drifting Cloud sect isn't a bad decision. Those two early nascent soul cultivators won't place any restrictions on you if you stay. Furthermore, the Drifting Cloud sect is by no means a small sect. It is able to provide a certain amount of backing for Master. Of course, if Master has other plans, then leave the matter be. None would easily dare to provoke a nascent soul cultivator, be they vagrant or not. Han Li calmly said, For the time being, I have no concrete plans. But I must spend the next years consolidating my nascent soul. I must also make a trip to the far west and acquire the last 3 layers for the Great Development Technique. Additionally, I will have to make a trip to the state of Yuanwu eventually. I made a promise long ago to exterminate the Fu clan in that country. I do not know if they are related to the 100 Possibilities Pavilion's Fu clan. After some further thought, Silvermoon proposed, If that's the case, Master should remain at the Drifting Cloud sect. If Master gains guidance from other nascent soul cultivators, it will be greatly beneficial to his cultivation. There won't be much to gain by standing alone. Yes, that's reasonable to say. I've grown tired now. You may withdraw. Without directly answering Silvermoon's proposal, he walked in the direction of his bedroom. Silvermoon tilted her head as she glanced at Han Li walking away and wore a pensive expression before walking away from the hall. Lying down on the stone bed in the room, Han Li gazed at the stone ceiling as his mind wandered, finding it difficult to fall asleep. When he recalled the formation of his nascent soul, he grew filled with trepidation. While it appeared that condensing a nascent soul was simple, it was actually incredibly dangerous. When a core is shattered, it causes the entire body's meridians to flow backwards. In truth, it had been painful enough to kill him. But since his cultivation was deeper than those of a similar grade, he was able to bear through it. Of course, the 9-curl spirit ginseng pill was greatly effective during this period, else Han Li suspected he would have fainted. The shattered core stage was extremely dangerous. However, it paled in comparison to the following stage, inner demon backlash. With the aid of the soul-nurturing wood beads, the matron screen beads, and the other soul-protecting treasures, along with the soul-tempering pill, he believed he would have a far easier time making it past this stage compared to other nascent soul cultivators. However, he didn't expect the ferocious cunning of the inner demon backlash to be several times greater than that of legend. The inner demons had Han Li experience a string of his deepest fears and hatreds that he buried deep within his heart. During this time, he was incapable to telling that it was an illusion and lived through each of them. Regardless of whether it be his small native village being ransacked, his family being assaulted, or his own cultivation disappearing, the pursuit of the entire cultivation world from having his bottle revealed, they all stirred up the weaknesses of Han Li's heart. Each of these illusions were as real as could be. Once he fell into them, he had no method of breaking free of them. Despite his calm and unwavering nature, he had nearly lost himself into these illusions from fury and fright. Fortunately, the spirit tempering pill and the other treasures were well deserving of their name, allowing him to keep his mind clear during crucial moments. Eventually, this led to Han Li finally breaking free of the illusions, awakening to a body full of cold sweat. But before he could steady his mind, the inner demons immediately followed up with another attack. While he was still perturbed, he was instead placed into many happier illusions. He met his father, mother, and little sister once more, living the happy life of when he was child. He saw a beautiful dream where he married Nangong and they became Dao companions. He even had a dream where he had a harem with the Mo sisters, Chen Xiaoqian, as well as several other women. However, Han Li was able to easily break free of these desires. Following that, Han Li envisioned himself becoming hegemon of the cultivation world in the Heavenly South region, eventually ascending to the next world and becoming a true immortal. Such visions continued one after another. After being enveloped in these illusions for an unknown amount of time, experiencing what seemed to be several lifetimes worth of happiness and grief, he suddenly came to awareness by a stroke of luck and was able to finally escape the entrapment of the inner demons, bringing form to a nascent soul. As Han Li silently recalled this while he laid in bed, he couldn't help but recall the first time his nascent soul manifested. Once his nascent soul had formed, it immediately flew out from the top of his head. He clearly felt that the nascent soul to be himself, and himself as the nascent soul. He was incapable of controlling the actions of the nascent soul, and could only helplessly observe it, playing with his own hair as if it were a true, careless infant. At that moment, his mind felt serene, and burden, less like all worries, had been tossed to the back of his mind, and he had become his true self. After pondering about this in hindsight, he realized what had happened. Because he had just formed a nascent soul, he was incapable of merging it with his mind. Once he consolidated the nascent soul and progressed his cultivation, this matter shouldn't reappear in the future. After restlessly pondering about his experiences forming a nascent soul, he eventually closed his eyes and drifted off to sleep. During this moment of rest, a seldom scene reappeared in his mind. He was back at his home village, where he was freely rushing through the mountains with his elder brother and little sister. Afterwards, he returned home to eat with his parents and have a nice chat. It was a nice dream. When the drifting cloud sect elders returned, Han Li agreed to enter the drifting cloud sect without any reservations. The two elders were vastly delighted to hear this. They immediately proposed to call together a majestic celebration within the sect for Han Li's entrance into the sect, inviting even the high-grade cultivators of other sects to celebrate. Once Han Li heard this, he intensely shook his head and flatly declined. He proposed a simpler observance to tell the other two sects of his entrance. In any case, he'd come to meet the two sects' nascent soul elders eventually. He may as well make a subdued entrance instead of attracting attention to himself. While the silver-haired old man and cultivator Lu felt this was improperly, they understood Han Li disliked bustling activities and agreed. Soon after, Han Li followed the two to a hall on the main mountain of the sect's 6 marvelous peaks. It was there that they summoned all the core formation disciples of the sect. A small portion of them naturally recognized Han Li to be a qi condensation disciple. When they heard of the rumors a few days prior that a newly ascended nascent soul cultivator was about to enter their sect, they investigated Han Li's background and came to a likely conclusion. But when the time came to see Han Li, they all revealed respectful faces despite whatever complicated emotions they may hold. Seeing these previous martial ancestors address him as Martial Uncle Han caused him to inwardly laugh, but his face remained calm as normal. With a wave of his hand, he had them stand, wishing to make things brief and easy. However, Han Li's spiritual sense caught a glimpse of the woman surnamed Song wearing a complicated expression when she called him Martial Uncle. Her voice was even somewhat hesitant. It seemed this woman had misgivings about having found nothing despite the heart-reading technique she had employed on him. She naturally couldn't address the matter given Han Li's current cultivation. After he met with the core formation cultivators, the silver-haired old man promptly displayed a map of the spirit veins of the Dream Cloud Mountains. Han Li was allowed to choose a mountain with abundant spiritual qi to establish his cave residence. It wasn't required to be within range of the drifting cloud sect. Having heard this, Han Li spent the day looking through without any reservations and found a medium-sized mountain in the west of the drifting cloud sect. Although this mountain wasn't imposingly lofty, nor did it have the best spiritual qi, it was an interconnected chain of mountains. In addition to the main mountain, it was surrounded by 3 shorter mountains. It was quite suitable to place down spell formations and restrictions, greatly aligning to Han Li's desires. Opening the cave residence was a rather easy matter for Han Li. Despite being the largest cave residence he had yet to carve out, he spent only half a day's time. Once Han Li finished establishing his cave residence, Han Li immediately placed down a few formidable spell formations on each of the 3 peaks, completely enveloping the area of 10 kilometers in a fog. Han Li wasn't particularly satisfied with these spell formations. Han Li decided that once he gained more understanding in the Tao of formation spells, he would place down even greater formations. With that done, Han Li returned to his previous cave residence at the medicinal garden and prepared to move everything there. However, there was a graceful figure that was waiting in the medicine garden underneath the mountain. Once she saw Han Li, she gave a deep curtsy and beseeched Han Li. Mu Peiling is blind despite having eyes. This junior hope Senior Han will not take offense at my previous actions. However, I do have a matter that I must request of Senior. Would Senior be willing to take me in as a disciple? I will be certain to serve you throughout my life and remain entirely loyal. Once that was said, this ordinarily proud woman bowed her head and revealed light nervousness from her face, but her eyes shined in anticipation.